Hello everyone, welcome back to our weekly market analysis video with me, Frankie, your market analyst at Markets4U. In today's video, we'll be looking at the key economic events and data releases from April 14th to April 18th, 2025. I've already set up my screen to display the economic calendar from the traders room at Markets4U. I've set the dates from April 14th to April 18th, covering this week's important events in GMT. Please remember to adjust to your respective time zones. Let's dive into this week's events. Monday, we don't have any important event to focus on. Tuesday starts with RBA meeting minutes and UK employment data, followed by Eurozone industrial production figures. We'll also see US New York Empire State Manufacturing Index and Canadian inflation data, concluding with Japanese machinery orders overnight. Wednesday brings UK inflation figures, US retail sales and industrial production data, and the Bank of Canada interest rate decision and monetary policy report. Later in the day, we'll get New Zealand inflation figures and Japanese trade balance data. Thursday features Australian employment data, the much-anticipated ECB interest rate decision and press conference, US Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index, housing starts, building permits, and initial jobless claims. The day concludes with Japanese inflation figures. Friday, we also don't have any important event to focus on as some major markets are on public holiday. This week's key market moving events will be the Bank of Canada and ECB interest rate decision on Wednesday and Thursday, where ECB are expected to cut rates, and the New Zealand first quarter inflation data on Wednesday, which historically generates exceptional volatility. Now, let's go to the technical analysis. This week, we'll focus on the euro against the US dollar and the US dollar against the Canadian dollar, as both instruments face significant data releases in the coming days. Let's start with the euro against the US dollar. Looking at the daily chart, the euro-dollar pair has recently shown strong bullish momentum, breaking above key resistance levels to trade around 1.1346. The pair faces a crucial ECB interest rate decision on Thursday, which historically generates substantial volatility. Looking at important levels, the euro against the dollar has support at 1.1231 and 1.1136, while resistance can be found at 1.1491 and 1.1599. The price is currently trading well above the 20-day moving average, the red line, which is acting as dynamic support. The stochastic oscillator is moving sideways in the upper range, suggesting the pair might consolidate before the ECB decision. With the ECB expected to cut rates to 2.4% from the current 2.65%, the market reaction will likely depend on the accompanying statement and guidance for future policy. Any hints about the pace of future rate cuts could trigger significant volatility. Now, let's turn to the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. On the daily chart, the dollar-Canadian pair has experienced a significant sell-off, currently trading around 1.3858 after breaking below key support levels. The pair faces two high-impact events this week, Canadian inflation data on Tuesday and the Bank of Canada interest rate decision on Wednesday. Looking at important levels, the US dollar against the Canadian dollar has support at 1.3769 and 1.3644, while resistance stands at 1.3948 and 1.4087. The price is currently trading below the 20-day moving average, the red line, which is acting as dynamic resistance. The stochastic oscillator is approaching oversold territory, suggesting we might see a potential bounce, but the overall trend remains bearish. Canadian inflation is expected to rise to 2.8% from 2.6%, which could influence BOC policy expectations. Meanwhile, the BOC is expected to hold rates steady at 2.75%, but the accompanying monetary policy report will be closely watched for signals about future policy direction. Both instruments could see considerable volatility this week. Traders should be particularly cautious during Thursday's ECB decision and Wednesday's BOC decision, as these events can cause sudden spikes in volatility and potential gap risks. Remember, always manage your risk carefully and never invest more than you can afford to lose. That's it for this week's analysis. See you in the next video.